The golden age of Hollywood radiated with stars who appeared to possess everything: fame, wealth, and acclaim. Yet behind the glittering facade, many iconic actors and singers endured personal battles that ultimately led them to die in poverty. In this video, we delve into the poignant stories of these legends, such as Judy Garland and Marie Provost, whose lives concluded in financial ruin despite their extraordinary talents. Their tales unveil the harsh realities concealed behind the spotlight, serving as a reminder that success can be fleeting and the price of fame can be extraordinarily high. Judy Garland. Judy Garland, adored for her iconic role as Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, amassed an estimated $40 million during her career, a fortune by the standards of her time. Yet, by the time of her death on June 22, 1969, at the age of 47, she was nearly destitute. Her estate was valued at a mere $40,000, and she left behind debts totaling approximately $4 million, including significant unpaid taxes to the IRS. Garland's financial downfall stemmed from multiple factors. She battled addiction to prescription drugs and alcohol, resulting in costly medical bills. Mismanagement by agents and financial advisors further depleted her earnings. Her third husband, Sid Luft, reportedly squandered much of her wealth on failed business ventures and personal expenses. In her later years, Garland was forced to perform in small venues and even fled from unpaid hotel bills. She spent her final days performing at a London nightclub for modest fees, desperately trying to settle her debts and support her children. Errol Flynn. Errol Flynn, the dashing star of classics like Captain Blood, 1935, and The Adventures of Robin Hood, 1938, enjoyed immense success and earned millions. However, when he passed away on October 14, 1959, at the age of 50, his estate was valued at just $10,000. Flynn's wealth evaporated due to extravagant spending on yachts, homes, and a lavish lifestyle. Legal troubles, including a highly publicized 1943 trial for statutory rape, in which he was acquitted, resulted in hefty legal fees. His ex-wife, actress Lily Demita, was awarded a substantial settlement in their divorce, further draining his finances. A failed film project, William Tell, collapsed after investors withdrew funding, leaving Flynn in debt. In his final years, he struggled with alcoholism and health issues, performing in low-budget films to make ends meet. Barbara Payton. Barbara Payton was a luminous starlet whose beauty and talent promised a dazzling Hollywood career. In the early 1950s, she captivated audiences alongside James Cagney in Kiss Tomorrow Goodbye, 1950, hinting at a future filled with cinematic triumphs. However, behind the glittering facade, her life spiraled out of control. Personal scandals overshadowed her professional accomplishments, and tumultuous relationships, coupled with a penchant for late-night revelry, led to substance abuse, tarnishing her reputation in an industry that thrived on image. Arrests for public drunkenness and writing bad checks became alarmingly frequent, eroding her standing and depleting her finances. By her late 30s, Payton was living in squalor, walking the shadowed streets of Hollywood as a prostitute to survive. Years of heavy drinking and drug use ravaged her health, leading to liver and heart failure. On May 8, 1967, at just 39 years old, Barbara Payton died at her parents' modest home. With no funds for a proper burial, her body was quietly cremated, a poignant end far removed from the spotlight she once commanded. Roscoe "Fatty" Arbuckle. Roscoe "Fatty" Arbuckle was one of the highest-paid actors in Hollywood during the silent film era, earning over $1 million per year, a staggering sum in the 1920s. His career crumbled after a 1921 scandal in which he was accused of therapy and manslaughter heterofactress Virginia Rappa. Although acquitted after 3 trials, his films were banned, and he was blacklisted from the industry. Arbuckle's legal defense drained his finances, costing him an estimated $700,000 in legal fees and expenses. Attempts to revive his career under the pseudonym William Goodrich were only modestly successful. When he died of a heart attack on June 29, 1933, at the age of 46, Arbuckle had minimal assets and was still in debt, leaving behind little for his widow. Dorothy Dandridge. Dorothy Dandridge was a radiant talent whose voice and presence lit up the screen, breaking barriers as the first African-American woman nominated for an Academy Award for Best Actress for her role in Carmen Jones, 1954. Despite her groundbreaking success, Dorothy faced relentless racial discrimination that limited her roles and earning potential. Financial mismanagement compounded her struggles, and by 1963, she declared bankruptcy, burdened with approximately $150,000 in debt, primarily due to unpaid taxes to the IRS. Failed marriages drained her emotionally and financially, and poor investments eroded her savings. In her final days, Dorothy's world had narrowed. On September 8, 1965, at just 42 years old, she was found in her modest West Hollywood apartment. Her manager discovered she had only 24 cents in her bank account, a stark symbol of her dire financial state. She had died from an accidental overdose of antidepressants, a poignant end to a life marked by triumph and tragedy. Marie Provost. Marie Provost was once the embodiment of Hollywood's golden era, a radiant star whose charisma lit up the silent silver screen in the 1920s. She captivated audiences with her performances in films like The Marriage Circle and Kiss Me Again. However, the dawn of sound in cinema brought unforeseen challenges. The transition to talkies was unkind to many silent film stars, and Marie was no exception. Her voice did not resonate with the new medium, and her career began to wane. Roles became scarce, and the once celebrated actress found herself slipping into obscurity. Struggling with the loss of fame and the harsh realities of a changing industry, she turned to alcohol as solace for her mounting despair. By the time of her untimely death on January 21, 1937, at the age of 38, Marie was living in a modest, dilapidated apartment in Los Angeles. She was found alone, having succumbed to acute alcoholism and malnutrition. Reports indicated she had a mere $300 to her name, a stark indicator of her financial destitution. Sammy Davis Jr. Sammy Davis Jr., an iconic entertainer known for his singing, dancing, and acting, faced severe financial issues despite his fame. When he passed away on May 16, 1990, at the age of 64, he owed the IRS over $7 million back taxes. After liquidating assets, his estate was still in debt, $5.2 million. Davis's financial woes were caused by excessive spending, gambling, and mismanagement. He lived opulently, with multiple homes, luxury cars, and expensive jewelry. His tax problems stemmed from both unpaid taxes and penalties accumulated over years. In a bid to repay his debts, Davis continued to perform almost until his death, despite battling throat cancer. His last days were spent touring and trying to negotiate with the IRS to settle his debts. Veronica Lake. Veronica Lake, famed for her roles in films like Sullivan's Travels, 1941, and her signature peekaboo hairstyle, saw her fortunes decline rapidly. By the time she died on July 7, 1973, at the age of 50, she had little to her name. Lake's downfall was due to a combination of alcoholism, mental health struggles, and failed marriages that resulted in financial loss. She declared bankruptcy in 1951. In the 1960s, she was reportedly working as a waitress and hostess in a New York hotel to support herself. She spent her final days suffering from hepatitis and acute kidney injury, alone in a Vermont hospital, with her only assets being a small bank account and some personal belongings. Buster Keaton. Buster Keaton, affectionately known as the Great Stone Face, was a luminary of silent cinema whose physical comedy and inventive filmmaking left an indelible mark on the industry. With masterpieces like The General, 1926, he dazzled audiences with his deadpan expression and daring stunts. However, the arrival of sound films in the late 1920s signaled a challenging new chapter for Keaton. Transitioning to talkies diminished his creative control, especially after signing with MGM, where studio constraints stifled his artistic freedom. The Great Depression further eroded his finances, and an expensive divorce settlement in 1932 significantly depleted his wealth. Despite these setbacks, Keaton demonstrated resilience, making a modest comeback in the 1950s through television appearances and supporting roles in films. He passed away from lung cancer on February 1, 1966, at the age of 70, living a humble life that contrasted with his monumental legacy. Mabel Normand. Mabel Normand was a beacon of brilliance in the silent film era, a spirited actress and pioneering director whose comedic genius captivated audiences worldwide. However, her life was fraught with turmoil. In 1922, she became entangled in one of Hollywood's most notorious scandals, the unsolved murder of director William Desmond Taylor. Although never a suspect, her close friendship with Taylor cast a long, dark shadow over her career. Mabel also battled tuberculosis, which sapped her strength and drained her finances. By the time of her death on February 23, 1930, at the age of 37, her wealth had significantly diminished. She spent her final days in a sanitarium, far removed from the bustling studios and adoring fans. Terry Thomas. Terry Thomas, the English comic actor known for films like Those Magnificent Men in Their Flying Machines, 1965, faced dire financial straits later in life. Diagnosed with Parkinson's disease in 1971, his medical expenses soared to £75,000 a year. To cover these costs, he sold his home and much of his personal property. Friends and fellow actors organized a benefit concert in 1989, raising £75,000 to help with his care. He spent his final days in a modest actor's retirement home, where he died on January 8, 1990, at the age of 78, having spent nearly all his wealth battling his illness. Bela Lugosi. Bela Lugosi, forever immortalized as Count Dracula in the 1931 film, struggled financially for much of his life. Typecast as a horror villain, he found it difficult to secure varied roles. His addiction to morphine and methadone, initially taken for chronic sciatica, impacted his career and finances. By 1955, Lugosi filed for bankruptcy, listing debts of $3,500 and assets only $11,000. He worked in low-budget films to support himself, often earning minimal pay. Lugosi died of a heart attack on August 16, 1956, at the age of 73, leaving behind just $1,900 in cash and a few personal effects. His funeral expenses were paid by Frank Sinatra, reflecting the meager state of his finances at the end. Bud Abbott. Bud Abbott, one half of the legendary comedy duo Abbott and Costello, faced severe financial difficulties due to tax issues. During World War II, the duo raised an estimated $85 million in war bonds through their performances. However, the IRS disallowed $500,000 in tax exemptions they claimed as bond-raising expenses. After Lou Costello's death in 1959, Abbott attempted to continue performing but faced declining health due to epilepsy and struggled to find work. The IRS seized his home to settle unpaid taxes, forcing him to live in a small apartment. He died virtually penniless on April 24, 1974, at the age of 78, with his remaining assets insufficient to cover his debts. John Garfield. John Garfield was a dynamic force in Hollywood during the late 1930s and 1940s, bringing a new level of realism and intensity to the screen. However, his career was abruptly halted by the political turmoil of the Red Scare. In the early 1950s, Garfield became entangled in the investigations of the House Un-American Activities Committee, HUAC. Despite his denials of any communist affiliations, the mere suspicion led to his blacklisting in Hollywood. The stress and frustration of being unjustly ostracized took a severe toll on his health. On May 21, 1952, at just 39 years old, John Garfield died of a heart attack. While he was not destitute at the time of his death, the combination of professional exile and personal turmoil had eroded much of the wealth and stability he had built during his career. These stories serve as poignant reminders that fame and fortune can be fleeting. Despite their immense talents and contributions to the entertainment industry, these stars faced significant hardships in their final days. Mismanagement, legal troubles, health issues, and personal demons eroded their wealth, leaving them with little at the end of their lives. Their legacies live on through their work, but their personal struggles offer sobering lessons about the vulnerabilities that even the most celebrated individuals can face.